Hello friends, this is Dr. Saurabh Patwadan from Nandadi Pai Hospital and FECO Training Center, and in this commented video number 10, I'll be speaking about a case of posterior polar, a young person and bilateral posterior polar cataract. So I'll be operating on this eye. This is an old video. I have used a handycam to record it, so you can find there is some difference in resolution. This is a nice posterior polar cataract. You can see those onion like rings, and so I have to take all the precautions not to open up the posterior capsule over here. As we know that in posterior polar cataracts as well, almost 70 to 80% cases you may not have any posterior capsular dehiscence, and that's why many times even if you don't take the precautions you may not have a posterior capsular dehiscence. But that should not be the way you should handle a case, because that 1 out of 5 case, if there is a dehiscence, you should be ready for that. And it has been shown that if you take proper precautions, the number of cases with posterior capsular dehiscence goes down to, say, less than 1 in 20 or 30. And even if you get a posterior capsular dehiscence, you may still be able to implant a IOL in the back. So that's the our target. In order to achieve IOL in the bag, we have to get that dehiscence as late as possible if it is already pre-existing. Now you can see that I have used a heavy viscoelastic agent here, and all throughout the surgery, the idea which I think I would like to follow is to maintain the anatomical position of the eye. That means the anterior chamber should not be too inflated or overinflated, as well as it should not collapse. So that's the main idea while dealing with a case where the posterior capsule may be weakened or dehiscent. I want to achieve a good CCC here, because I think that's the important part of this procedure. Because if I get a good central capsulorhexis of say 5 millimeter, I can place any IOL either in the sulcus or do optic capture later on if there is a posterior capsular dehiscence. So I think the capsulorhexis is most essential step in posterior polar cataract. Now just watch this. I am removing some amount of viscoelastic from the anterior chamber, and we have to always keep on balancing the amount of fluid I am going to push in. Now just see, I have created a track in the nucleus and push fluid to do the hydrodelineation. Just watch here, creating a track in the nucleus and then pushing the fluid little bit so that there is a hydrodelineation. It is important to not to again overinflate or raise the intralenticular pressure here, because that may be problematic for posterior polar cataract. And always remember, whenever you are doing hydrodelineation, you have to keep the posterior lip pressed so that excess fluid keeps on moving out of the anterior chamber without causing overinflation. Now the key element in fluidics is that I always use low bottle height for all posterior polar cataract cases. The bottle height is typically 50 centimeters of water. It is that low, so I have to adjust all the parameters accordingly. So my vacuum is say around 200 to 250, and this is a very soft cataract. Already hydrodelineation has been done. I am doing that trench just enough so that the endonucleus can be divided into two, but there are no exuberant attempts to divide the nucleus till the posterior plate. It is just making that crack in the endonucleus, and then I start aspirating out the endonucleus. You can go even directly for aspiration of the endonucleus and then start taking out the nucleus layer by layer in such a soft cataract. But making that initial trench is useful to hydrate the endonucleus and the surrounding epinucleus, so you can take it out more easily. You can then remove all parts of epinucleus as well. The idea is to not to rotate the nucleus anytime and just keep aspirating. And at this point you can also shift to bimanual irrigation aspiration, so that you can remove the subincisional epinucleus. But here I continued with the my phaco probe here very gently. I am using a bevel down kind of aspiration. The phaco power here is almost zero, not using any phaco for that matter. And you can see that posterior plaque is now detached from the capsule, and this is the time when you should expect some dehiscence if it is there. So far there has not been any dehiscence noted. I have reduced the vacuum for this particular step to almost 100 to 150, so that I have very stable chamber, not too overinflated as well as not much of surge. So I have achieved that very comfortably here, and this is another important step that I will be doing, that is injecting OVD from my non-dominant hand while removing the phaco probe. More important, one more tip is that whenever you are removing the phaco probe, first stop the irrigation so that the anterior chamber gets filled with OVD, and then remove the phaco probe. Many times you continue irrigation while pushing the OVD, and what happens is that the OVD keeps on getting washed off by the irrigation. So that's a nice tip to have when you want to fill the chamber with OVD. And while doing the coaxial IA also, just go back and watch this video again. You will find that whenever my phaco probe or the IA probe is entering the eye, there is no overinflation of the anterior chamber that you normally see in any case of a routine phaco, because you have kept the bottle height high to maintain the anterior chamber. So you won't find that in this particular case. Now in this case I've used topical anesthesia, but I would say it's preferable to use peribulbar anesthesia or subtenon, so that the patient is comfortable and patient doesn't exert pressure in the eye, because I felt that that is one of the important lessons to have for doing posterior polar surgery. Now this is a 3-piece IOL. I am not putting it because there is a rain, but I just had already planned a 3-piece IOL for this particular patient. Another important thing, what you see on the posterior capsule, is there are some few opacities which are lying at the area from where we have removed the plaque, but I have done that mistake before trying to polish that off, and this is the area basically where posterior polar may be, the posterior capsule may be very weak, and I have had a couple of cases where the posterior polar opened up during my attempts to polish the posterior capsule. So I think we have to avoid that temptation to polish the posterior capsule. And so that's the end of the IA. All throughout I have maintained the bottle height of 50 centimeters of water. If you have a IOP controlled machine, you can use 50 centimeters of water as a IOP, and that makes the surgery very safe. And when you are using low bottle height and low fluidics, everything is under your control, so you don't get that kind of posterior capsular dehiscence where the nucleus tends to drop down because of the heavy infusion. So I think these are the few tips for operating on posterior polar cataract. Definitely we'll have more cases in future to know about further details how to manage such cases, even harder cataracts with posterior polar. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you have some interesting videos, do submit to us on our website www.phacotraining.org.in, and do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your listening.